Okay, let's see. Are we live? I think we're live. Let's see. Is it delay? Okay, I think we're live. Yeah, great. That's a weird way to start. I just heard myself start. Anyway, hey, thanks everybody for joining us. I don't know how many people are. Oh, some new people jumping in right now. Cool. Um, if you're watching this after the fact, however, we're going to be waiting for about 5 minutes before we get started, just to let people get the chance to join. But we will be, yeah, talking, do some local history here, and some of your favorite pictures is what we're going to be talking about today. So this is some viewer submitted images that we're going to talk about. So got a couple minutes here. I'm sure it's fine, but I'm just gonna keep talking and check the volume because that's just what I do, I guess. Okay. Great. That works. And cool. Yeah, so I hope everybody's having a nice Thursday so far. Um, great. If you've never let's see here. If you've never joined us from one of these, welcome, I guess. I always forget to mention this. I'm gonna do it now before I forget. But if at any point you have any questions, comments, suggestions, whatever, please do encourage you to leave those in the comment section or the chat section, whatever platform you're watching this on. Because I will check after the fact. So if something occurs to you, feel free to do that. Yeah. And while we're waiting, let me just take a moment to thank our sponsors. Yankee Bookstore is sponsoring History Chats this year, so big thanks to them. As well as to, of course, all of our members of the Historical Society who make it possible for us to do this. So big thanks to all of you. And if you're not already a member, or you might be, if you're watching and might be interested in sponsoring History Chats or one of our programs, do feel free to check our website, marathoncountyhistory.org. Decided to actually include that for the first time. I keep saying it and go, I should probably put that on there. It's a long URL. Or you can actually, come by the museum because we are once again open. Actually, we're open weekends now too. So we're back to our pre-COVID schedule. At least here at the Woodson History Center, the Yawkey House tours are still, we're still kind of getting that lined up, but that should be something that you can see as well in the near future, hopefully. In the meantime, obviously we are our Woodson History Center. We've got our exhibits, including the new one on parks, which just opened up this week. So that's exciting. Here we go. So I think this is good. Let's take these off. I'm trying to remember if I say anything else here. No, I think that's probably pretty close. Okay. All right, so I think we'll maybe get started here because it's a little bit of a delay, so hopefully it'll work out okay. But yeah, like I said, so today we're talking about we're continuing our theme of our favorite pictures as a framing device for talking about some interesting stories. So in the past we've done some staff favorites here at the Historical Society, but today we're not doing that. We're doing your favorite or viewer submitted images. So we have been asking you if it's one of those things where it's hard to know how widespread this is. I know I have favorite images, but I also catalog images for a living. So, I don't know how widespread this is, but we did put it out there and said, hey, if you have a suggestion for your favorite historical image from Marathon County, you know, send them to us or give us a link to where they might be on the internet or whatever. We didn't get a huge number, which I think might be part of the format. This is kind of an awkward way to do this, but we got a few, and I think there are some interesting stories we can see in them. So we're going to start with Joyce Knaps, who was one of the people who did respond. She responded on a Facebook post, with this picture of her grandparents' homestead, and I was able to inquire a little bit more. She said it's in the Marathon City area, which is cool. This isn't one that I necessarily have much to say specifically about. I think a lot of favorite images come down to personal taste. Sometimes they don't always have to be like, oh, this is an image that explains the whole history of. Sometimes it's just a sentimental favorite. This is where my family came from, and that's awesome. So thanks, Joyce, for sharing this picture. It's pretty cool. June also sent an image. June is the person that I know whenever I ask for something, for a story or a picture for an exhibit or for a program. She usually has been the one that immediately gets in touch with me, and this is no exception. About probably within a day of the first time I said, hey, we're going to be doing these, she sent this to me. This is her, I believe, her husband's grandfather, Leroy Manicky. I don't Ackerman. I think Manicky is the Wisconsin way that we'd say that, but I could be wrong. Anyway, this is about 1915. She thought, and it's in the vicinity of Rib Mountain. Although, again, there's not a whole lot to really see. Oh, right, you can't see my. I'm just gonna try to fix this real quick. So you can't see my cursor. There we go. I should be able to see it. There we go. Cool. Yeah, so it's the background. There's not a whole lot to see in 1915 in this area, so we can't really say much more than that. Although she did mention as well that the Leroy's parents ran Manicky's jewelry and gift shop. Again, maybe Manicky's in Wausau. So that's pretty cool. But then she also sent me another picture about a day or two later, which is this one, which is also a very cool picture. And this one, there's a little bit more. I know where they are. They're on top of a mountain, and she suggested it's 1972, which makes sense. So clearly, we're looking southeast off of the top of Rib Mountain. You can see, the river going along this way in Mosinee Hill. I think it's Mosinee Hill. The southeast of Wausau region over here. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting is I had a moment. I'm not a big heights person. I prefer not to go. I've been up on top of this before when I was young, but I had a moment of, well, where is this? Looks like it's the observation tower or lookout tower, right? And it is. But there's this moment of like, oh, I didn't realize that. I don't remember if they had these, binocular station things. And so I had this moment of like, am I wrong? Did they have them and I just don't remember them? I mean, wouldn't surprise me. But I was curious, and so I was thinking. I know that there are some over here on sort of lower down on the Outlook sort of platform here. But again, thanks to Google Maps Street View, people have taken a nice view from the top, like a panoramic 360 degrees. So this is the view in at least 2016, and sure enough, there are none of the things. This is another person took this around the same time without people. So I was like, oh, okay. Were there any of at some point? There must have been, right? And sure enough, yeah. This is from the early 60s. You can see them on the top of the tower. So that's kind of a fun detail. Another fun detail, there is actually a name for this tower. It's not just observation tower. when it was created, it was the Van Duser. I think it's Van Duser Tower. Again, I never know necessarily if we have a unique Wisconsin variation of this of the pronunciation, but yeah, Van Duser Tower in Rim Mountain on Rim Mountain. This was dedicated in on June 7th, 1959. And it was built by the Wisconsin Conservation Department with help from local service clubs, the Kiwanis, and the Rotary clubs. And actually, the name comes from one of the members. This is Van Duser in color here on the right, or Anton M. Van Duser, Dowser, again, whichever way. And I think he sometimes went by Van, but I don't know if that's necessarily the case or not. But he was a big Kiwanis guy and was very much involved in the sort of recreational sport for recreational opportunities like this. So yeah, you got the tower named after him. So next time you're up at Rib Mountain, you can look at the tower and go, oh, there's a name for that. I don't know if they use it officially anymore, Van Duser or Duser, but yeah, that's what it's called. Moving on, this is Chris Martin. I'm cheating a little bit here because she is actually a volunteer here and has done a lot of work. Person behind a lot of the History Speaks programs in the past, as well as Vintage Board Game Night. She also helped with some of our stories exhibit. If you've been into the museum, you might probably see this as our long-term exhibit. And when I asked her, hey, do you have a favorite picture? She took me to this display and said that there was one here that sticks out in her mind that she kind of fought to make sure it was in here. There's a lot of pictures in here of people in various costumes, periods, doing different things. But she wanted to make sure that this one got in. This is an interior shot. It's one of the only ones that doesn't have people in it. This is the actual picture. Now, some of you may know exactly where we are. But for, give you some time to think here. This is a lounge sort of bar at a venue here. You can see Rib Mountain in the distance, the edge of Marathon Park looking. This is from like the early 60s or mid 60s maybe. So there's a little bit of development, but this is still the west side of Wausau is still kind of undeveloped. So here's a hint. I don't know if this helps, but here's a hint for you if you don't know it. Well, this is Mountain Lanes, bowling alley. So it opened 1963 on September 14th. This is the newspaper ad saying, hey, this is our date we're opening. And the architect drawing of what it would look like. Changed a little bit, but it's pretty close. And yeah, so that's Mountain Lanes. Which many of you, if you were a bowler back in the day in the 70s, 80s, or later, of course, yeah, this is a very familiar place. And it was one of those places that, like, I don't know, I grew up in this sort of area on the west side, and for some reason, I knew there was a bowling alley up there someplace, but I always assumed this was like a church, just because of the sort of steepled part here. It's very unique architecture and very unique. It became a landmark, right? Not only because of the uniqueness of and sort of the place people go up to play bowling, but also, it's one of the first things that was built over on 17th Avenue. Yeah. So you have the Lookout Lounge, which is what this is. So I think, and Chris is definitely she's involved in the Friends of the Wausau Landmarks Commission. She's a big enthusiast of architecture and landmarks and stuff like that. So I'm sure that played a role in this as well. And I think also, when I asked her, she was kind of saying that, this is a big part of, the life and society culture here. It's not just people standing for pictures. It's, it's a bar on Mountain Lands. That's a part of life here. So to make sure that it's get captured. So it's a great choice. I like it. And of course, just to kind of bring us full circle to the end of the story, Mountain Lanes, bowling is less popular over the decades, and certainly, there are other places you could go that weren't built in the 60s. And so as time went on, Mountain Lanes kind of, less popular. And ultimately in 2017, they opened for the last time, sold the building, and now it has been redeveloped as apartments. Okay, So next we have Scott Peterson, again a volunteer here, but also somebody who tunes in occasionally. And so yesterday I was looking for Mountain Lanes pictures and happened to mention that, and he said, "Oh, I got a picture for you," and he gave me this one, which is a great picture. So what is this? This is a postcard taken by James or produced by James Colby in 1912 after the Great Flood. This is probably the biggest flood to hit the area. I did a whole video about this, but well, anyway, we'll talk about that in a second. Now, there's a lot happening here, which I think is part of the appeal of the image. But specifically, obviously the center here is the steam engine here. This is the Lamont steamer. This was bought in 1869. This particular picture is from 1876. So this is on the 400 block. You can see the courthouse, the old courthouse, the old courthouse, I guess, here. And this was the engine building for the volunteer fire department. And this was a steamer. You can see it in action here. It's, you got the wagon with fuel to keep the fire running. And the fire then would create sort of a suction that would pull, usually these hoses that you can see spreading to the bottom right here, those would be into the water. And originally in the lake, or I'm sorry, the river. And then they would kind of, long hoses would then pull that water out, and then they would, shoot it at a fire. Later on, they had cisterns that were established so they didn't have to go all the way to the river. But here it's interesting because they're kind of doing the opposite. Instead of pulling water out of the river to spray on a fire, they're actually, because there's a flood, these tubes would have gone into a building. I'm not sure which one, but a building, and then it would have been pulling the water out, and we can see the reverse from another picture of them pumping it back into the river. But yeah, it's the fight. This is one of those moments that is this particular day, which would have been July 24th, 1912, was like one of the defining days. Like this all happened like 10 o'clock. I did a whole video on this for postcards from the past series. If you want the full story about the flood, it's a really good one. But one of the things that I kind of explored in that video was, this is a big flood. It hits around 10 o'clock and then does tremendous amount of damage in Wausau, as well as like throughout communities across the Wisconsin River here. And then the next day, it's just kind of like there's all this water rushing down, and people would just kind of come out and see, because the sky, like it's not storming anymore. So people would come out and kind of survey the damage and take pictures. This is probably the most photographed day in the history of Marathon County. This single day had more photographs taken. Like today, I mean, at least relative, adjusted for the amount of cameras around. Like today, everybody's got a smartphone, and I can take 60 pictures of my food, or my dog, or whatever. And but back then there was so few cameras, and they were all out there taking as many pictures as they could, which creates some interesting things. There's a lot of like postcards and prints, and this is half of a stereoscope, which is really interesting because so many pictures were taken. And granted, of the destruction of the flood, like this is a picture that I don't think otherwise would ever have been taken. Regardless of like the damage and this engine, like nobody's going to be standing on this location taking this picture. It provides a really interesting thing because there's so many pictures taken. It gives us a really clear snapshot of what downtown Wausau looked like in this moment, which leads to the question, where are we? So this is a Sanborn map from 1912. You can see that there is a depot here. This is the Chicago Northwestern. This is on Clark's Island, which you can see over here. Hopefully you can see the cursor okay here on the island. That's where we are over there. But if you look at the angle, it's kind of going directly at us, which means that we have to be kind of over here somewhere. So then if we look at the map from 14, kind of giving the specific thing, you can see the bend of the river here. And sure enough, well, here, let me move the... Excuse me. We move this over, we can see the buildings here. This is City Hall. You can see the brick building over here. And then, we're standing on this bridge. You can see part of the City Hall and then part of this wood building here. And that gives us a very clear indication that, yeah, that's exactly where we are. Also, kind of giving it away is this other picture that I found from the day. So you can see the bridge, and then here's that steam engine pumping the water. But this is taken from the roof of the courthouse, looking down the other direction, and so you can see the trains at this freight depot. So this is exactly where we are, which is interesting because again, this is not an area that gets photographed very much, and yet this is an opportunity to do that, and it's a very interesting moment in time. Oh, and I should also mention, because I don't think I did, this steam engine that's depicted here is in our collection. We have this, so it's still around today. I don't think it's working order or anything, but I would be very surprised if it was. But yeah, still around, which is also kind of a cool connection here as well. Okay, I'm also kind of cheating with this one a little bit. Sharon did send me a picture, but she sent it for me a different prompt. This is a year and a half ago or something when we were asking for park pictures. She sent me this one. So this is actually her in 1956 at Cherokee Park. So I thought, oh, that's a really cool picture. And I don't know, for some reason, I had some time and I thought, I was colorizing, kind of practicing some things. So I quick did a colorization of this. And so I, went, okay, this kind of makes sense. And I sent this to her and she, responded saying, you got the colors all wrong. Because it turns out that this was, and she remembers this very clearly because this was her favorite snowsuit growing up. It was bright red. So I had to correct that for her. And later she did mention something about really enjoying one of her favorite pictures. So I thought, it fits here. But yeah, it's a cool picture. I even just looking at this, I'm like, oh, the colorization, I could do some little better things here. But anyway, point is, this is at Cherokee Park. This is the shelter at Cherokee Park, and you can see the end here kind of sticking out. I don't know which side it's on because I think the wings are kind of symmetrical. I'm not familiar with the landscape there, but either way, that's where we are. And this is where I would normally go into, hey, let's talk about Cherokee Park, but I'm gonna not, and instead I'm going to direct you to our new exhibit. There's a segue here. Yeah, so preserved for generations. I mentioned at the top, or earlier on in the presentation, but we just opened this exhibit. It's the history of the county parks system, which has been around for, at this point, a little over a century. And so we've been working hard on this. This is on the second floor of the Woodson History Center, and it is now open for your viewing. So if you want to come by, again, we're open at regular hours now, so Tuesday through Sunday. The weekdays we're open at 9 to 4:30, and the weekends we're at 1 o'clock to 4:30. But either way, you can come in. There's no admission fee or anything. You can just come in and see the exhibit. I think it came out pretty good. I mean, I'm a little biased in that I'm was the lead designer for the exhibit, but yeah, I think people will enjoy it. So just want to take a moment. I'm trying not to harp on this too much as we go forward. But I wanted to take a moment because, hey, it opened this week. It's exciting. So, yeah. I guess we should talk about what's happening next week too as we wrap this up. So next week, as I've said, we're going to be featuring a guest once again, and this is going to be Bob Becker. Here he is in the 1970s. Long career in taking pictures. He knows how to take a good picture for sure. So talking to him a little bit about what picture, I'm not going to give a snippet of what he's going to. We're going to leave it as a surprise for the actual images he's going to talk about. But talking to him about kind of things he wanted to do, I think we settled on a project that he's been doing, and some of you maybe know what I'm talking about. He's posted some of these online here and there, but he came across this desire to have a certain scene that didn't exist. Like nobody ever took a picture of it while it existed in the way that he had it in his mind. And so he started to just kind of do some historical reconstruction of images that don't exist. So it's an interesting process, and we'll pick his brain and have him walk us through why he did certain things and talk about the process. It'll be fun, I'm sure. So yeah, I hope you join us. That's next week. as always, at 12:30 on Thursdays. So that concludes what I was going to be talking about. I am now going to flip over and just see if you have any questions, any comments. This is your chance to throw them in here. Not that I'm necessarily expecting you to, but okay. Well, no, that's all right. No pictures here, or no comments. It looks like, but um, that's all right. Um, yeah, thanks for joining me this afternoon for some history. Again, hope to see you back next week for some more. And in the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful Thursday, and we will see you